All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour. The American presidential race remains very tight despite the various opinion polls that are suggesting a lead for the Democrat candidate Kamala Harris. Now, according to a recent opinion poll by the Wall Street Journal, Harris is holding on to a 1% lead over the Republican rival Donald Trump. Now, 48% of the respondents who've surveyed, they said that they support Harris compared to 47% who reportedly favor Trump. Now, the poll was conducted from between the 24th of August till the 28th of August amongst 1,500 participants and has a margin of error of about 2.5 percentage points. A mere 1% lead, the Democrat backers concede, makes the race really tough. And one of the largest super political action committees backing Harris has said that internal polling numbers are much less rosy for Harris than what the public is seeing at the moment. Now, added to this are the areas of uncertainty for the Democrats, even amongst the traditional loyalists for the Democrat Party and its individual candidates, like the African-American women and men. Now, analysts are saying that even the support of this group is hardly guaranteed. Surveys show that black men are already demonstrating support for Donald Trump over his promises to tackle issues such as unemployment and other economic issues that have been worsened in the aftermath of the pandemic. Polling so far suggests that Trump could in fact pull in as much as 30% of the total black vote this year, more than 3 times the number that he had back in 2020. In the swing states, that will make a huge difference, where just a handful of voters in just a handful of states could change the outcome of this election. Now, earlier in the week, the Trump campaign had posted a video on X, the ad that says, "I'm not with her because she is not with me," has generated nearly 3 million views, which is a sizable number. With so much riding on so few votes, any shift by black women, like "I'm not with her" crowd, could ultimately deny Harris the historic turn in the White House. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of how things are, of course, panning out in this presidential election at this moment as we speak, we're being joined by Ms. Adele Nazarian, who's joining us live from Washington, D.C. She's, in fact, a senior media fellow at the Gold Institute for International Strategy. Ms. Nazarian, thank you very much indeed, ma'am, for joining us here on this broadcast. Now, it's very interesting as to how things are, of course, looking at the moment. In the polls that are coming out, it appears that Kamala Harris has closed out the lead with Donald Trump. In some cases, she's perhaps even leading. But the internal assessments within the own Democrat Party indicate that the picture is not really that rosy for Kamala Harris. What's your assessment of this?
Great to be on with you. You know, it's really complicated. It's not as clear-cut as we can make it. I think they're really smart. As you mentioned, the PAC that is backing Harris, Super PAC, said themselves that the picture is not as rosy for Kamala. And I think that it's partly a way to really scare Democratic voters, independent, undecided voters, to get out there and vote. I think that the media has done a really wonderful job at, scaring everyone about Donald Trump. And at the end of the day, it's done a bang-up job, obviously, in deterring voters from voting for him. But it's also helped bring a lot more voters to him. And so I think that if you have 1, 2, 3 percentage points of margin of error, it's not enough, really, considering how close the polling numbers are for the 3 recent polls that came out. Bloomberg, Reuters, I think it was, and the other one. And I think that when push comes to shove, it's still too close to call. Amazing to note, as you said, that more Black American voters, men in particular, and women, are coming out for Trump. And that's really a testament to what he's done historically in terms of passing legislation to help Black Americans, more so than his predecessor.
It's interesting that Black American men and perhaps also some women are looking more towards Donald Trump and not towards Kamala Harris, who is, of course, of Black and Indian heritage. Now, this is where things get interesting, don't they? Because economy is such a big part of the American election process. Overall, the American economy seems that it is doing well, but the benefits of that growth and prosperity are not being felt by the average American voter. In that case, the American black voter seems to be trusting Donald Trump more than Kamala Harris about her economic outlook that she'd like to lay out if she gets a chance at the White House. Is this going to be a deciding factor, that Kamala Harris does not have an economic plan for the nation, that she's not able to communicate with them enough?
So, great question. I have to say, even if President Harris, let's say, has promised not to raise taxes on Americans making less than $400,000 a year, you see more and more over the past decade or so, 5 years in particular, I'd say, more Black Americans prospering, heading past the middle class, even rising up, getting into the upper echelons of earning brackets. And to be frank with you, a lot of them are making more than $400,000, $500,000 a year. And that's really also something where a lot of them feel that historically the Democratic Party has made them become dependent on the government dime, on the economic teat of getting the handouts. And I think that a lot of them are tired of that. They're better than that. And they know that they have such a potential. And I think that really Kamala Harris's economic plan doesn't appeal to them anymore because they're doing better than what she's promising. And they're going to end up being targeted by, let's say, her, economic tax hike because they're going to be affected by it.
Right.
And I also happen to think that it's going to be hard for her to get it passed anyway, because look what happened to President Biden. He was also planning not to raise a tax, to pass a tax on a certain earning bracket, and he had a very difficult time getting it past Congress. Right. I think she'll face the same hurdle.
And my final quick question to you is this: the fact that Kamala Harris is not able to communicate well enough, but she's also not even communicating at all, because the sit-down interview that she did with CNN earlier this week, that's the only interview or the only media interaction that she's done with the media since having assumed as the candidature from the Democrat front. Do you think this is where Kamala Harris is likely to lose out in a very big manner with respect to Donald Trump, because she's just not communicating with the American voters directly?
So, as we all know, Donald Trump was able to win the American vote by going directly to the people using the media, okay? And that's exactly how he won. Part of it. Partly, I have to say. I think that Kamala is being very strategic. Her and Tim Walz obviously had their first interview televised. There'll be a few more, but I think she's playing it safe. Don't get me wrong. She has charisma. She has the charm factor and element, no doubt about it. But do I think it's as much as Donald Trump's? I don't. I think that he has a whole different level of charisma and star power behind him in the way he communicates, even though it's abrasive at times. But I do think that she's playing it very safe. And as it is, she's doing much better than President Biden. She came in, he endorsed her, totally saved the Democratic Party, I'd say, in terms of having a nominee that can win the election. But I think that if she does do too many interviews, you're absolutely right. She may end up having gaps, and it may end up not working in her benefit. So playing it safe, it seems. But I think that as she gets better trained and closer to the November election, we may see more of her, depending on how confident her team is and the people behind the scenes of putting her out there.
All right. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Adel Nazarian, for joining us and getting us that perspective there.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.